This is D'Lo Brown. You better recognize this. The only podcast I pay attention to is the Ministry of Wrestling. Believe me.
Hey yo, how you doing, guys? It's me, the one AJ, representing 1/5 of them boys. So you know what that means? It's time for wrestling now. You saw D'Lo Brown and you saw the cross brand, so it means it's a big moment. Because right now, guys, I'm about to introduce a gentleman who I'm very happy to meet, James from For the Love of Wrestling. James, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Hey AJ, how are you?
I'm all good. I am pumped. Last year I had the pleasure of attending the For the Love of Wrestling at the BEC Centre, and it's back. It's coming back. It's dropping this February over the Valentine's weekend, which I know a few partners may not be happy with, but I am ever so excited about it. So, just a few questions for you, really. So, kicking off, Monopoly Events are the main organisers behind this great event.
Of course.
They're mainly familiar with, everyone knows them mainly for the Comic-Cons and whatnot. How did the inspiration come to bring in For the Love of Wrestling?
So Monopoly Events has been doing Comic-Cons for a long time now. And you are right, they're responsible for perhaps 16 to 18 of some of the biggest conventions all around the UK and around Europe. Some of the flagship ones that people will know are the ones like Comic-Con Liverpool, which has got that big now. It's going to be done twice a year. You know, there's no surprise in getting sort of 60,000 people there over a weekend. Comic-Con Scotland, there's two up there now in Aberdeen and Edinburgh. There's Wales down in Newport last year. Sorry, there's Northern Ireland as well. There's two in the Midlands now, and North East as well, the one in Newcastle up at the Utilita. But there's also what probably you might call the more specific events. So For Love of Horror, which is huge show. For Love of Sci-Fi, For the Love of Fantasy, which debuted in London last year. So it's huge brand now. Probably back in 2018 at the Comic-Con Liverpool, the event had a couple of guests. You'll know him very well as Gail Kim and also as Edge. Currently going by the name Cope. But we had Gail Kim and Cope at that particular event. Very quickly it became clear to sort of my boss and the other people involved that, you know what, there's enough appetite there for sort of have its own convention. So it was launched in 2019 back in Liverpool, and since then it's evolved. We lost a couple of years to COVID, unfortunately, but we did two shows in Liverpool, and then obviously it's moved across now to the BEC in Manchester. It's a better venue for it. It's a much better layout. And over the course of the last 5 years, it's just been getting bigger and better. This year, you know, we are so proud of the lineup this year. It's completely insane. And, you know, not just that, the good thing about For Love of Wrestling is there's so much else going on, just other than, you know, the autographs and the pictures. And this year, like never before, that's evident. It's the biggest one we've probably ever done.
Oh, I tell you what, I'm so excited. As I said to you just before we press the record button, I'd never heard of For the Love of Wrestling. I've been a wrestling fan for so many years, and when I heard about it, I made my way down there. So many stars that I was familiar with. I'm a huge Click fan, so the chance of hearing Sean Waltman had me like losing my crap essentially, and I rushed down. Had such a good time. The minute you guys announced this event, I booked the hotel ticket and I was just waiting for the lineup, and it has not disappointed. And as you said, it's not just the wrestling. There's the props, there's the conventions, there's the people selling their merch on the side. So many different bits along the way. So just talk us through it. I know you guys do the Comic-Con, so it's not that hard to develop it, but how do you go through your selection process of which stars you'll be having on the card each year?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, we have certain big guests in mind, and then we have those certain big guests in mind. Obviously, we've from the start of For Love of Wrestling back in 2019, we would look at, you know, we put together a list of perhaps 20 guests that we would always want. And, you know, we've been every single year we go back to that list and say, right, which of these guys are we able to get this year? We go back and get in touch with them. And then we sort of, you know, once we've started to get a bit of an idea of what the basic foundation of the show looks like and which headliners we can be looking at, we then really start to try and build the event and the rest of the guest list around that. You know, this year, I mean, when we knew we could get names You know, like JBL. Okay, well, you know, Ron Simmons. We never had Ron Simmons before. We've had JBL at a previous show, perhaps 2 years ago. So as soon as we know we could get Ron, right, is JBL available? Let's do that. Let's do that APA reunion. You know, but then we got Mark Henry. Right, well, okay, we've got Ron, we've got Mark. Why don't we try and get a nation reunion together? You know, so very much like that. But you know, we're constantly in contact with all of the biggest names around the world and all the biggest agents. And yeah, I'd probably say if we go back to 2019 when this was a new brand, it was probably a lot more difficult. Full Wrestling has got such an exceptional reputation around the world now. And like anything, you know, people talk just like you in your workplace. All of these wrestlers have WhatsApps with themselves, and they talk on a daily basis around what, you know, the best things to do. We had I won't give you a name, but a big name in the industry contacted us yesterday, funnily enough, and said that, you know, he'd been talking to Mick Foley. Can he come over and join the show, because he's heard nothing but good things about us. So, you know, that's over the course of the last, you know, 6 years, we built a fantastic global relationship. Reputation. And yeah, it goes from strength to strength. So yeah, I mean, and then as I say, we work with one agent and we might book one guest, and then they'll go, well, what about this person and this person? One of our great agents is the agent that came to us and said, you know what? I've been talking to sort of Muta and Tajiri and people. I've been talking to Sonny, and he's been talking to me about Tajiri and Muta, and what do you think of that? And we were like, yeah, of course, let's have that big conversation. So yeah, the more Full of Wrestlings we put on, guest list wise, perhaps not the easier it gets, because it's always very difficult at that part of that negotiation stage, but the easier it is to have that first level of contact. And everybody's, you know, we always want to put on, you know, the best show, and a show that we would want to attend as well. So, you know, you asked me, I think, before we started recording, whether I was a wrestling fan, and I am, and for many decades now. So some of it, with the ideas we come up with, the lineup we put together, the props we put on, it probably comes from quite a selfish point of view, because it's from what would I like to see as a wrestling fan? What would make me buy a ticket to a wrestling show? There's quite a bit of that goes on as well. We like to have a little bit of fun with it as well. You know, the prop builds this year. Yeah, let's build the APA office. We've got these amazing WCW names like Rick and Sting and Lex and Ron and Muta and people like that. Of course, we want to rebuild the Monday Night Nitro stage. You know, Jake the Snake, who's going to be on our lineup this year. Jake the Snake is, you know, one of the very first, when we first started putting that list together of our dream names for Full of Wrestling, Jake the Snake was, you know, right on that top, within that top 10 list. So yeah, again, a dream come true for us, and we're having Jake over. So of course we're going to rebuild the Snake Pit set. You know what I mean? So yeah, a lot of it comes from that as well. So it's, you know, and I stress this, and I think, you know, every time we do an interview, I try and stress this isn't convention people putting on a wrestling convention. This is lifelong wrestling fans who happen to work in the convention industry who are trying to put on, you know, a convention that they would want to attend as fans, and that they would pay to attend as fans. And we think we're doing that, and we think we get the, you know, the fan seal of approval on that. Of course, when it started off in 2019, it was sort of fairly local to sort of people within the Northwest. Now, you know, and I think this shocks people. It shocks me sometimes when I hear it, but now we get people every year who travel from Hong Kong, from Canada, from North America, from Japan. We get tons of people from Germany, Italy, and Switzerland, and France, and places like that. Tons of people come over. Quite literally, boatloads of people get the ferry over from Ireland for the show. You know, so it has got that global appeal now, and it's rivaling sort of any convention really in the world. Apologies for the long-winded answer there.
No, that is a perfect answer. And the best bit is that, as someone who's not been to a lot of conventions, I felt the love when I went in there. It's really cool to go to some places and just be amongst fans. Wrestling can be such a niche market, and it has that you know, the non-predetermined. We won't use the word that will trigger fans and wrestlers alike. But you know, people always find it like a corny sport. But you go to a place like this, and it was nothing but harmonious love. Again, you just have to talk about playing Kingdom and everyone just screaming "whoa" at the same time. Where they're all in the lineup for that. You're seeing all your heroes in the ring. The entrance ramp was amazing. It was playing like the Raw Titantron on loop, and it just felt like I was in an arena. And being in the UK, we don't get a lot of those US imports all the time. So it's good to see that. And it actually now makes a lot of sense, and it is much appreciated that it's wrestling fans doing something for wrestling fans, you know. And you could see that. I remember one of my pictures that I've
Yeah.
got is me reaching for a Money in the Bank briefcase. It's all of those little bits there, those little niche bits that we would appreciate that other people don't get. So I really do appreciate it, and just want to thank you all for it. You talked about this lineup and the people that have gone in the past. Talking previous shows, because I'm going to talk about this show coming. Who were some of the most memorable guests for you as a wrestling fan that you had the opportunity of meeting?
Some of the most, probably some of the most memorable. I mean, first of all, for me, back in 2019, having Bret Hart there. I mean, for me, Bret's the GOAT. You know, I think for me, I still, you know, I can that's my you know, my golden era really. That's sort of 1987 probably through to sort of 1994, 95. Even now, that's what I go back and watch. That's what I watch on Netflix today, funnily enough. But for me, that's the best era, and from that whole period, I still think Bret's probably the standout star from that age. Having him on the 2019 show was phenomenal. Eric Bischoff, we had Eric Bischoff and the Outsiders, actually, Kevin and Scott, on that particular show, and they were having a lot of fun. And I'm, you know, I will always say this about not just for love of wrestling, but for love of horror. And it's too. The great thing about those particular shows is when you get a comic, let's say Comic Con Liverpool, for instance, there may be 45 guests on that show. Some of them will know each other, some of them won't, some of them will never lay eyes on each other, etc. When you get 30 wrestlers on a show, they pretty much always know each other, whether it's from doing another convention, whether it's from working together at promotions. Some of them, you know, have had relationships in the past, whatever it is, but pretty much on the wrestling shows, everybody knows each other. So they're having a great time. It's like they're having a little weekend away with the boys and the girls. And so, you know, they do generally have a great time at Full of Wrestling, and it comes across to the people who are in attendance as well. So when you get someone like the Outsiders and Eric Bischoff together, you know, they were just having so much fun being there. And, you know, Eric Bischoff, you know, you look what he did in, you know, with what he did with WCW. For me, he's one of the greats. Very, very shrewd businessman. Not many people could go against Vince McMahon and beat him for as long as, you know, in a ratings with a product like he did. So just having Eric Bischoff there, and he was very, very complimentary actually about the show. And I mentioned earlier about those WhatsApp groups and the people who communicate. I've lost count of the number of people who've even now to this year, I'll get a message from someone and say, "Oh, Eric Bischoff recommended you guys," or "Eric Bischoff speaks very highly of you guys." And you know, he did the show 6 years ago, and he still thinks it was great. But Eric Bischoff's got a lot of time for the UK audience. I made some sort of flippant comment. I happened to interview him over the weekend for saying to him, "Look, you know, we really appreciate you coming over here. We're aware that, you know, we're just a small little island, you know, half a day's travel away from you guys and more." And he just sort of stopped me dead there, and he said, "No." He said, you won't get it because you're here." He said, "But the reputation of UK fans is one of the best in the world and the most respectful in the world." He says, "So the guys love coming over here." So great to get that feedback. At the same show, we had The Undertaker doing his ever first convention appearance. So, you know, that in itself was such a big wow moment. Certainly can't forget that. But no, I think we've had amazing people every year. You know, God rest his soul. You know, we had Bray Wyatt on 2 of our events, sort of a one-day WWE Superstars event that we had, and then also the last event we did in Liverpool. And again, we have at Full of Wrestling what's called the sort of like the platinum experience, and that's where you sort of, you know, it's a platinum ticket, but you get lots and lots of perks and lots of VIP things off the floor. And again, I just happened to be hosting VIP panel off the floor with Bray Wyatt, and this was when he'd left WWE the first time. And he probably left there about 6 months by this stage. And there was me and maybe 15 other people up there doing that platinum panel, all sat in a circle on comfy chairs, and Bray just talked. Bray just talked for about 15, 20 minutes. And honestly, that entire time you could hear a pin drop. Because he was that, he even just sat there just having a conversation with him, he just exuded this incredible level of charisma, and just he just had this amazing presence with him. The only other person I've ever really experienced it with in wrestling is probably The Undertaker, who just when you sort of walk into a room and you can quite literally feel the energy. And so Bray was very much like that, and he was so creative, so warm, and just that probably half an hour that we got to spend with him then one of the best moments for me as a wrestling fan ever. And I am, as I say, I am a wrestling fan first and foremost, and always will be. But yeah, that was crazy. And then on the flip side, probably a bit more lighthearted on the same show, we had the New Age Outlaws, and for all intents and purposes, you would have thought that they were on a stag do that weekend, because they just didn't stop laughing and giggling about and playing pranks and pulling ribs on all the other guests, and just generally just being complete anarchy. But it was absolutely wonderful to be around. They had the time of their life, and the people around them and the fans that met them and the other guests that were around them were also having the time of their life. So no, very, very lucky, very, very fortunate. And this is, as I say, this year will be the 5th. There's not been for me a bad guest. There's been guests that have been good. There's been guests that have been great, and there's been guests that have been phenomenal. But we've been very, very lucky to for me to never had a bad guest. And I'm sure one guest that always sort of stays with me about that is sort of Bubba Ray Dudley. So Bubba Ray, we were if you read the dirt sheets, if you listen to the internet and all that type of stuff, Bubba Ray's got a bit of a reputation for being a bit, he can be a bit arsey at times. And we were warned about that by people who'd worked with him before. Honestly, the one of the warmest and nicest guys you could ever meet, the consummate professional. If you told Bubba Ray to meet you downstairs at 9:10, he'd be there at 9 o'clock on the dot. And he was always saying to you, is there anything I can do for you? Do you need me to do anything to make this weekend more successful? Have I done everything that I need to do for you guys? Really, really, really professional. And if you spend more than 2 minutes in his time, you become very aware. And I knew he was very, very well respected within the industry. But if you spend more than 2 minutes with Bubba's time, you become very, very aware of the fact he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling, inside and outside of wrestling. And I can see when he was around other people, how he tries to pass that on to people. But yeah, I mean, Bubba Ray's goes completely under the radar for having this insanely brilliant mind for the business.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think it was a Jericho podcast many years ago, and he was talking, and the more he spoke, it was a newfound level of respect I had for him from there. So, like yourself, I've heard stuff on the dirt sheets, but I've always been, that interview always stuck in my mind of, this guy knows what he's talking about. So to hear it again, as you said, it's not one of the names that is highly respected well, when I say respected, acknowledged for the wealth of knowledge that he's got. But I'm really happy to hear someone else highlight that, because he's definitely got it. He's definitely got it. Right. What I'm going to do right now, James, is just talk about this year, because, as I said, from the end of March, started to hear For the Love of Wrestling's coming back. Then the Valentine's weekend was announced. And then the lineups are being announced sporadically throughout, all the way up until just before Christmas. And that was the big one. So here we go. Right. Let's have a look. We have Ash by Elegance, Sabu, Papa Shango, The Mountie, D'Lo Brown, Shane Douglas, Jacqueline, Django, Breeze, Heath Slater, Buff Bagwell, Sean Mooney, Mike Chioda, Sonny Ono, and then, of course, it gets bigger. We've got, I'm going to do this in reverse order because the last name is wow. Tajiri, The Godfather, Deborah McMichael, Jinder Mahal, Jake Roberts, Mark Henry, JBL, Great Muta, Bradshaw. So yes, this is what I love about this. I'm going to touch on this shortly. Ron Simmons, Lex Luger, Mick Foley, Sting, the icon who retired just last year, and Ric Flair. Now, wow. Excuse me. Wow.
It's something special, isn't it?
It really takes your breath away. And what I love is the way you guys respect the fans when doing this stuff, because you booked Charles Wright. And it's not that we're just going to do Charles Wright as this figure or that figure. Whoever you appreciated him as, you've got 2 chances of meeting him. If you're a Papa Shango fan, guess what? He's available as Papa Shango. The next day, he's available as the Godfather. You've got JBL, who is this ultimate heel on one side, but John Bradshaw on the other side, him and Farouk, is something else to be appreciated. And you guys make people get the best of both worlds with it. I just love that. But yeah, no, I was going to say, this is the part that we just really appreciate. And then you get into people like Sting. Sting was announced last year. He goes into retirement, so he pulls out, but he's coming back this year. So like, you guys have honored everyone and just bring it all back in to really deliver to the fans what you promise on, really.
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, just go back to that sort of mention then about Charles Wright. I mean, yeah, and again, this goes back to us being wrestling fans, because someone who's just putting a wrestling show may just book the Godfather, but we're like, oh God, well we've got him, let's do Papa Shango as well, because me as a wrestling fan, I want a picture with the Godfather, but God, Papa Shango picture is probably even more rare, so I want a picture with Papa Shango. There's a couple of names there that, of course, if you're booking a convention, you might be looking at a Mick Foley, or you might be looking at a JBL, or like a Jake the Snake or something like that. But we're fans, so that's what makes us think of people like Mike Chioda, a perfect example. We're like, what, we had Earl Hebner on our show probably 3-4 years ago, and we thought, what, would people like Earl Hebner on the show? And I'm like, I'd love to meet Earl Hebner. I bet Earl Hebner's got some of the best stories in the world. So we booked Earl Hebner, and you know what? He was as popular, and as the response to Earl Hebner was as positive as we've had with any other guest ever. And he came over here and he had lines around the building all weekend. So that told us that, it's not just always about the wrestlers. People like to hear from people that work in and out of wrestling in different roles, which is why we've got, Mike Chioda on this one. This is why we booked, Sean Mooney. Sean Mooney was there during that peak golden era period, sort of the late 80s, early 90s. The event centre and that Sean Mooney voice is just part of my wrestling childhood. So, that's why we book the guests that we do. But yeah, we lost Sting last year, unfortunately, due to him having his retirement match. And so we've been on it, and we've got a great relationship with Sting's agent and Sting himself. So we've been on to him. So we thought the lineup was pretty much complete, actually. If we go back to sort of late November, we were still going to continue to work on a few people, but we thought we're pretty much there with this now. And then we started having the odd conversation with Sting's agent, and at the same time we started talking to Rick's people, and it just so happened that we managed to get both of those things over the line, sort of like mid-December. And so we thought the lineup was pretty much there, and then we added Sting and Ric Flair. Obviously, you can imagine the response from the fans was incredible. And again, these in-gimmick photos. I mean, of course, everybody loves to meet wrestlers. I love to meet wrestlers, but having a photo, that sort of in-gimmick photo with Sting with the war paint on, with the APA as the tag team, with Muta with his face paint on, with Charles, as whether it is the Godfather or Papa Shango, the Mountie, all these sort of great in gimmick, Sabu in his gimmick. So, yeah, again, we're always trying to think. Okay, well, we've got the guest. What can we do with them? What reunion can we do with them? How can we group something together that really works for the fans and makes them think something special? We're doing this year some things that have never been done before. We're doing the photo with, for us, the icons of WCW, which is Sting, Flair, Lex Luger, and also Great Muta. Now, we don't think that photo's been done anywhere ever in the world, at any convention ever at any point. So, we're doing a world first. That's what we think of as fans. What can we do with these people that would make it really special, and makes it justify someone traveling from Japan or from Canada or from France or from wherever they're coming from. So we're always thinking it's not just about putting bums in seats and then taking people's money. We want people to come and really have that wow moment. That's really important to us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to highlight some of these wow moments that you mentioned, because as you said, you do collaborative bookings, as I'd call it, because if you are a fan of Heath Slater and you're a fan of Raj, and yeah, why not be the third man in the two-man band picture? We talked Breeze, we talked Dango, we've got a Breezango reunion going on. As the image come up, there we go. We're talking about the great legends of Japan, Tajiri, Great Muta, Sonny Ono, an APA reunion, ECW, guys, like all the originals are here. It's great. The Nation of Domination. And as we said, the ECW reunion legends, champs. And again, these are the things that I just love. We talked about the props. I've kind of thrown them up, as you mentioned, the snake pit, the Nitro intro. These are a chance. Again, we're in a similar age bracket. The stuff that we grew up watching as kids and embracing in our teens and what have you, to physically be able to be there and embrace it is such a great thing. And I'll tell you what I found out just today, and it put such a smile on my face. I appreciate what you guys are saying, so don't take it as a flippant comment when I say it. One of the most basic sets that you could ever imagine had me having the biggest smile on my face, and it's this one right here. the APA office. Even seeing it on WWE TV, it's just like, who would think of that? But the chance to do it, I'm like, I am definitely taking a picture in there. And these are the moments that you can't recreate anywhere else. And that's the magic of For the Love of Wrestling for sure.
Definitely. And we're probably going back 2.5 decades, 2 decades ago now, but wasn't it? But I will do. I'll go back. And when I was thinking about the APA office, because we've got at Monopoly now an actual team of prop builders who do this. This is what they do, and it's very difficult as a wrestling fan trying to explain what some of these props are. You can't really say, "Oh, can you build me a snake pit?" They're just going to think you're mad as a box of frogs. So you've sort of got to go back and do research. And what's weird is it's quite difficult to get really good pictures of these. If you try and go back and get a really good picture of Jake's snake pit, it's quite hard because all the footage is quite poor. But yeah, I went back and I just went back. Luckily, they've released some figure sets of some of these, and one of the ones they have released, I think it's through Ringside Exclusives, or whatever. They did do an APA office set, so that's one way to do it. But I went back and watched. I'm thinking to myself, is this worth doing? Is this as good as I remember it, or have I just got that, sort of brain you have when you always think things were best when you're young? And you went back and there's some amazing skits in that office. One that sticks with me is the Rock one, where they make him go back and knock on the door, which is, it's just genius. You go back. It was good for us to do this because it was cool and people do remember it as good fun. And, for me as a wrestling fan now, I think that some of that humor that perhaps was in wrestling back then, I think that's maybe what's missing these days. And I think the characters, I'm a big fan of the golden era. Perhaps some of those characters wouldn't get over now, but if you go back to the Attitude Era, I think it just had a lot more characters to it. I think everybody's walking around trying to be the badass in the black t-shirt these days. I think there's too much of that and not enough people with their own individuality.
No, you're right.
What's missing from wrestling.
You're right. Even going back to another APA moment I remember was Crash Holly paying them just to take a nap with the hardcore title because of the 24/7 stipulation. All of those little bits along the way are, gold moments that's kind of missing nowadays. Yeah, for sure. Right. So going on to giving people an idea of what this massive weekend looks like. As I said, last year, one of the great moments for me being a fan of the Clique and everyone in there, knowing Sean Waltman's going to be there. And I just saw Saturday, Sunday. Then I realized Friday night had Sean Waltman having an in-ring interview with SoCal Val, who I know you guys have brought back again. And absolutely amazing lady. She just does such a great job with the interviews. But this year, you've got the man himself, Mr. 16-time champ himself, Ric Flair, in the ring to kick off the night. I mean, that is a great moment in itself. How did you guys choose Rick to be the one to kick off the event?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I mean, it's Ric Flair, and it's Nate. It's arguably, you ask Triple H, you ask Austin, you ask Taker. I mean, he's the greatest all-rounder of all time. So why would it be anybody else? I mean, we did think about other people. I'm not going to lie, but when it comes to some of the stories that person can tell, I mean, there's nobody who's been there and done it all as much and to the levels and probably to the extremes that Ric Flair has. So, of course, we wanted to do it with Ric Flair. And it's Valentine's Day as well. So, who else would you want to spend your Valentine's Day with? Apart from Ric Flair. So yeah, we thought Rick would be the perfect guy to do our Friday night evening with this year. It's going to be an amazing evening. Anybody who's watched Ric Flair interviews over the years or listens to when he's on podcast, he pulls no punches. So not only is it going to be an evening where the host will be asking Rick questions, fans who are there in attendance, and it's selling out. It's selling really well. So if you do want to attend, please make sure you get your tickets. Fans who are in attendance will also get to ask Rick questions themselves. As you say, Rick's never backwards in coming forwards. So again, we just wanted to do it because we think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then obviously it's followed very quickly. The Ric Flair show finishes, and then we've got a show from the amazing people at Progress Wrestling, who are one of the biggest and best British wrestling promotions out there today. They will have the very, very best of British talent around today on that card. They've already announced a number of matches, which you can find on our Facebook page. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing night. The Ric Flair thing into a 3-hour live wrestling show. What a way to kick off the weekend! This is why it's evolved from a standard perhaps wrestling convention into this entire weekend. It's a wrestling festival now. It's probably a better way to describe it.
No, 100%. And you actually led into my next question. I'm lucky enough to be in London, so I've seen a lot of Progress shows. I was down at Unboxing, and me and the rest of the guys who went to it called it the show of the year. It was absolutely amazing. But I just want to ask, how did the relationship with yourselves and Progress come about?
Yeah. I mean, we get up. I mean, Progress, we get on phenomenally well with. We're really, really good friends with both Lee and Martin, and Mad Dog and all the other guys there. Obviously, Val does, who's part of our sort of Monopoly team. She does a lot of work with them. And they wanted to get involved in the show. I think it was like 2 years. It was our first Manchester show that they were down at. It was well, no, actually, I think it was the last one in Liverpool. I think it was the Earl Hebner. I think we did the Earl Hebner photos in their ring at the time, actually. But no, they've been, they've become a big part of the Full of Wrestling family. They love to be involved. They're going to be involved. We've got another event coming up at the end of March. It's our first ever year of doing this. As I mentioned before, the wrestling event has been so successful and the horror event has been so successful. But there is a big crossover. Generally, people who like wrestling like horror films and rock and roll and metal and all that type of stuff. So at the end of March, we're doing another show called Horror, Rock and Wrestling. And Progress are going to be involved in that particular event as well. We've announced a couple of wrestling guests on that already. Chris Jericho, David Arquette, and also Tyler Main, who was in WCW. But yeah, Progress, we work really well with Progress. They've got a wonderful work ethic. They're working really well as part of our overall weekend. Brilliant people to be around. I'm actually jealous, actually. I know it's not their show, but they're doing a show this Sunday in London with GCW.
Yes.
Hammersmith, one of the guys. Yes. So yeah, I would have liked to make my way down there. I might still make my way down there, actually. But no, big props to everybody involved in the Progress team. They're great to work with.
No, co-sign on that. Had many interaction with Lee and Mad Dog are two of the greatest people I love to see at a show there. They're just absolutely great. And as you said, Val works with them as well, and nothing but love for absolutely everyone within that team. But moving on, that's the Friday night. Then we go on to the Saturday. It's going to have all the panels and everything. But as you said, it's a festival. And with a festival comes the party and the music. So after the convention's finished, there is the after party, bit of music, a cosplay competition, which will be hosted by China Syndrome. I did see her there last year. Absolutely. I actually thought Joni had come back to life. That's how shocked I was. Talking of Progress stars, Lana Austin doing Lana Oki. I am all for that. But the big one is another collaboration with wrestling organization that you guys have got, the Future Shock Break Convention, where they have their show as well. That is such a great show to have. Now, with this, there's going to be a Rumble, and the winner of that Rumble gets to take on Raj, aka Jinder Mahal. How important is it for you guys as like wrestling fans to not only work with a local coming company such as Future Shock, but to give the up and coming stars a chance to work with legends and current stars?
Yeah, it's hugely important for us, and and again, Future Shock have been with us since the very, very start. I mean, 2019, when we were back in Liverpool, Future Shock were the guys who put on our show after the day convention was on, and they've been with us ever since. And again, we've slowly built a wonderful relationship with everyone down there, Sam and Chris and people like that. And again, as the show's evolved itself, we've become. We've decided that, as many of our guests as possible. And again, this factors into who we book and who we don't book. It's really important for us to make sure we've got plenty of guests on the show who can be part of that wrestling show on either the Friday or the Saturday night. And it's all down to trust and how things evolve, and just people. Obviously, they work with a lot. They know these guys sometimes better than we do. So yeah, the guests when they come over, they want to be. And this year's crazy. We've never had this many people involved in the Saturday Night Wrestling show. I think there's guests in every single match. Do you know what? I'll tell a lie. I think there's guests in every single match apart from the women's match. But yeah, I think there's 6 or 7 matches on the card, and there's one of our guests or more than one of our guests involved in every single match, which is incredible. But we've always had guests that work on that Saturday night show. I'm going back to the first ever year in 2019 when we had Pete Dunne as a surprise entrance in the Invitational Battle Royal, and that was just absolutely crazy. The absolute roof blew off the place when he came in. But as things have moved along, we've had other wrestlers who've come on. We had Grado was a guest who was part of it. Braun Strowman was a guest. Eric Red, as you know, from the sort of the Wyatt family, he was he's wrestled for us as well. This year, it's crazy. But as I say, these wrestling promotions, particularly Future Shock and Progress, they've been around a long time and they've got wonderful, wonderful relationships. And wonderful, wonderful reputations. Last year, who did I take over last year? Do you know what? On the Friday night, I was just mooching around the hotel trying to get a bit of work done, and Santino Morello, was it last year or the year before? Santino Morello asked me if I could take him over so we could go and watch one of the matches. Took him over there, and we bumped into D'Lo Brown, who wasn't even on the show. He just happened to be in the UK doing a wrestling show somewhere, and he jumped on a train down to Manchester so he could come and say hello to the Progress guys on the Friday night. So yeah, you never know who's gonna pop up both in the ring and out of the ring at these live wrestling shows. We had, I think I'm going back 3 years now. It was during the Grado match actually, because they had the Grado match. It was Team Grado, I think against Team, maybe it was now, but it's Team Grado, and we got the Grado Like a Prayer entrance at For Love of Wrestling, which was just brilliant. We absolutely loved it. But I'm watching it, and something catches your eye, and I looked to my left, and there was MJF, New Age Outlaws. Perhaps Eric Rowan was sat there, all in the crowd, just watching the live wrestling show. And actually, I remember, I think it was JBL said afterwards, he said, yeah, I get it. Because he'd heard of Grado, and I think he'd seen a bit of him in TNA at the time, but he sort of didn't really know what the hype was about and why the English British fans had responded how they had. And then when he saw his entrance, he was like, okay, yeah, I get it now. So you never know. You never know who's going to be around during these live wrestling shows. And you mentioned the panels that happen as well. And again, these panels are just incredible. If you go and this isn't throwing shade on anybody else that does this, but if you go and book like an evening with event where you might go and listen to a wrestler talk for an hour, some of them shows are 20 quid, 30 quid for a ticket. You get every single one of our guests does a panel over the weekend, and it's included within your entry ticket. You do not pay £1 more, so you can come to For Love of Wrestling, buy yourself a cold beer, get yourself a good seat, and just sit by the ring for 2 days and just watch panel after panel after panel after panel, and hear Mick Foley talk, then Lex Luger talk, then Jake the Snake talk, and then Mark Henry talk, then Tajiri talk, Shane Douglas talk, and that doesn't cost you a penny more than your entry ticket. And again, that's that for us. We don't think we shout about that enough, because that is part of some of the most amazing value you will ever see at a wrestling show.
Do you know, I have to co-sign you on that. Last year, I brought my lady friend with me, and she's not a wrestling fan. She's a Corey fan, so I took her around to see the set after that. But there was a point where I just didn't want to leave the room, and I promised her, I was like, right, we'll go in half an hour. And the worst thing that happened is, well, you can tell by the t-shirt, NWO fans. I'm just about to leave, and Scott Steiner's walking down the ramp, and I'm like, I looked at her like, no, not now. But she's like, but you keep saying that. And this is the truth. And Nico from the ministry, who's coming down with me this year, I warned him. I'm like, I don't care what you want to do. I'm turning up on Friday night. I'm leaving to go to the hotel room once it's over. I'm waking up on Saturday morning, and I'm not leaving till that's over. And I'm not leaving. I will be in this convention center for the whole weekend, and I will not regret a single second of my life. It's so much that you can take in, as you said, without even moving anywhere. Now, don't get me wrong. The Nation of Domination picture is something huge, as is the APA. I think Ron Simmons is going to be tired of my face by the end of the week. Sting, Foley, these people, like all of these legends, Luger, any name I don't mention will be a disrespect. So I'm just going to say everybody. Like, to see the opportunity to meet them is one thing, but to hear the stories, the takeaways that I had just from last year, that you're just sitting there and listening to people. Again, Sean Waltman was one. Dolph Ziggler was another. Okay, I missed Scott Steiner, but all of these great names coming out, and you just hearing stories. Trish and Lita, oh my God, that was amazing hearing what they had to say. And as you said, breaking convention last year,
exactly.
Being able to see Gangrel walk out, Ken Shamrock do his thing, and Rhino, I was more than happy with that. And that just shows that even after the convention's over, there is something worth staying back for. Even the cosplay party, I was really in there because people make effort. People do make a lot of effort for it, and I respect the hell out of them for it. It's a really great weekend. With that, I could talk wrestling all day with you. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure, James. But I just want to say, as you said, tickets are selling out. But if for anyone who's now heard of For the Love of Wrestling for the first time, here's your chance to plug it. Just give away any socials, how they can book, how they can get in contact with yourselves.
So the easiest way, the website is www.fortheloveofwrestling.co.uk. But the easiest way to find out all the information you need is hit the Facebook page. Just search for the Love of Wrestling. You'll find it very, very quickly. It's got over 100,000 followers, so it pops up normally at the top of the list. You'll find all of your links there to the websites, all of your links there to all of the other socials. You can find the lineup information there, the website links, which will tell you all about your times and your different ticket structures, give you the info if you've got, if you need any support with like disability applications and things like that. So hit the Facebook first, look for all the information there, check out the pictures, the videos, you'll see what previous events have been like. But you know what, if there's anything on there that you can't find, you're thinking, do you know what, I still can't find what I need, feel free to just message the page as well, and it'll be myself or one of the other guys who picks that up for you, and we'll come back to you as soon as possible. For the Love of Wrestling.co.uk is the website. Just hit the Facebook page For the Love of Wrestling, which has got over 100,000 followers, and that will give you all the information you need, or just pop us a message and we'll always answer your questions.
Awesome. I'm going to ask one question, which is very selfish, but I can't help it. I hear about the more shows that you guys are bringing. The horror, rock and roll, and wrestling sounds awesome, but it's all up in the north. Any chance of any of these conventions coming down a bit south? Any chance us Londoners are going to see you guys popping up down there with For the Love of Wrestling in London?
But don't be surprised. I mean, obviously we've got For the Love of Fantasy. We have that at the Excel now. It wouldn't be unthinkable to have a wrestling guest on there. Also check out our Comic Con Wales event, because that's literally only sort of like 2 hours from London. We always generally put wrestling guests on there. We had John Cena on there not so long ago. So we do really appreciate that there is wrestling fans down in the south. But yeah, never discount it. We've discussed in the past about having another event, and it would make sense if we did that obviously somewhere else apart from Manchester. We've done events in Germany before now. We did an event with The Undertaker over in Germany. So never say never. We're always on the outlook for bringing more wrestling and more great conventions to the UK and beyond.
No, most definitely, guys. So as you heard, For the Love of Wrestling is happening in Manchester, and honestly, as much as I asked for it in London, I had the best time in Manchester, so much so I'm flying back down. But more importantly, guys, do check out Monopoly events, because if you are into horror, For the Love of Horror is something for you. The Comic Cons, most wrestling fans are comic book geeks. Let's not deny it, guys. Go and enjoy everything that's happening down there. They are producing absolutely great events that we, as the ministry and Silver Screen Dudes, will absolutely always love and appreciate. James, thank you so much for your time. And I will hopefully catch you over this weekend down in Manchester from the 14th down to the 16th of Feb.
You will do. Come and say hello, Jay, and I will speak to you before that, definitely, mate.
Nice. Absolutely appreciate it. Okay, guys. Until then, this is the one AJ signing out, and we will see you soon. See ya.